The transmission is interrupted by a loud, gut-wrenching scream. The voice is unmistakable, but the words are distorted. Static crackles across the comms and then, silence. The crew freezes. The last thing heard is a breathless whisper. It's too late. The connection flickers back on, but only for a moment. There's a pause, an uncertain delay, as the comms system struggles to maintain the connection. Suddenly, a robotic voice from the control room cuts through the fog. Emergency systems engaged. Life support stable, however. The signal is abruptly severed, leaving a cold void. Captain John Reynolds' heart pounds as he stares at the screen. He's been here before too many times, but never in a place so far from Earth. His voice breaks the silence. Get them back, now. The crew scrambles, fear lacing every movement. What happened? Who's still alive? What did they miss? The tension builds, threatening to consume the ship's narrow corridors, the silent vacuum of space waiting for its next move. The crew stands frozen in the control room, unsure of what just transpired. The static on the screen is deafening. There is no clarity, no confirmation of what happened, only the haunting remnants of a lost transmission. Captain Reynolds turns slowly to face the crew. His voice is hoarse, barely a whisper against the hum of the failing systems. We've lost them. His words hang heavy, as though spoken to no one in particular. The uncertainty of their situation gnaws at everyone present. You? There has to be another way. We can't be this far from home. His hands shake as he glances toward the blinking control panel. Alex, visibly shaken, looks up from the terminal, meeting Reynolds' eyes. We can still fix this, right? His voice trembles, betraying his doubt. The captain is silent for a moment, before speaking with finality. We'll try. The crew's unity begins to crack, the fear creeping into every word spoken. The weight of silence stretches between them. The emergency lights flash intermittently, creating a pulsating rhythm that mirrors the anxiety mounting in the room. Reynolds steps toward the mission board, his voice low, almost a whisper. If we don't find a way to restore comms. His words are left unfinished. The reality is sinking in. They're on their own. The crew, unsure of how to proceed, begin to gather their thoughts. Dr. Clark, 42, female, stands off to the side, her arms crossed as she observes the crew. Perhaps it's time we address the true nature of this mission, she suggests quietly. Her tone is calm, controlled, but there's a cold edge to it. The crew turns to her, startled by the interruption. You're not suggesting we give up? Alex asks. Clark meets his gaze with a calculated, unreadable expression. Not at all, she replies softly. But we must ask ourselves why the agency hasn't responded. A shiver runs through the group, each of them beginning to wonder if their mission has always been doomed from the start. Reynolds finally breaks the uneasy silence. The mission isn't over, he states, though doubt lingers in his voice. The weight of leadership bears down on him more than ever. He turns to Alex, his voice gaining strength, trying to find hope in the situation. I need you to work with Dr. Clark. Get the comms back. Whatever it takes. Alex nods reluctantly, though his hesitation is palpable. The room seems to close in as the crew begins to split up, each member going to their assigned task. Dr. Clark meets Reynolds' gaze, her expression unreadable, but her eyes flicker with something deeper, a quiet, unsettling awareness of something the others don't yet know. She turns to Alex, offering a fleeting, almost imperceptible nod. The quiet hum of the spacecraft's failing systems grows louder in the background as the crew disperses, each person now fighting their own battle in this lonely, vast emptiness. The crew has split into their tasks, but the ship feels emptier than ever. The rhythmic beeping of equipment now echoes like a ticking clock, each sound a reminder that they are running out of time. Reynolds paces back and forth, his thoughts racing. We can't afford mistakes, every second counts. He glances over at the data readouts, which blink with failing systems. The minutes drag on like hours. In the silence, the thought is growing. What if been abandoned? What if Earth has left them to fend for themselves with no way back? As Reynolds' mind races through the implications, Alex and Dr. Clark work frantically to reboot the comms system. The ship's hum becomes a monotonous drone, growing ever louder in the background. With each failed attempt, the hope of rescue fades further into the distance, and the weight of their isolation becomes undeniable. In the wake of the disaster, the silence in the control room feels suffocating. Captain Reynolds, 37, stands at the front, his face grave. "We're not just fighting a system failure," he says, his voice heavy with concern. "We're fighting time itself." His gaze shifts from the flickering monitors to the crew, his exhaustion visible. "If we don't fix this, the mission will be a failure. No one will ever know what happened here." His words settle over them like a weight, each member grappling with the gravity of the situation. "We can't afford to fail," Reynolds adds quietly. The crew, already on edge, exchanges uncertain glances. The tension in the room grows with every passing moment. The pressure is mounting, and they all feel it. For Reynolds, it's more than the mission. It's a chance to redeem himself, to prove to himself that he can lead them out of this. But deep down he knows there's more at stake than just the success of the mission. There's his very sense of self-worth. The control room is bathed in the glow of malfunctioning systems, a stark reminder of how fragile their situation is. Dr. Clark's voice breaks the silence. "We're running out of options. The longer we wait, the harder it will be to fix this." She steps forward, her gaze focused. "We can't rely on Earth to save us. We have to take control." Her tone is calm, but her words hit like a hammer. Captain Reynolds looks at her, his jaw tightening. "You think we can do this alone?" he asks, his voice strained. Clark meets his gaze, her expression unreadable. "I don't think we have a choice," she responds. The crew members fall silent, the weight of her words settling over them. As the silence grows, the faint sound of the failing systems becomes a constant reminder of their vulnerability. Time is slipping away, and they are on their own. Reynolds walks over to a nearby console, his eyes scanning the readouts. He's lost in thought, his mind racing. "What if we're not supposed to make it out?" he mutters to himself, the question hanging in the air. The silence that follows feels heavy, and the crew is unsure how to respond. Alex looks over, sensing the captain's inner turmoil. "You can't think like that," Alex says, his voice quiet but firm. "We're not giving up." Reynolds turns to face him, his face shadowed with doubt. "It's hard not to," he admits, his voice low. "Everything's falling apart. The systems are failing, the comms are down. How are we supposed to fix any of this when we can't even talk to Earth?" The words seem to hang in the air, unspoken fears revealed. Dr. Clark, who has been silently watching, steps forward. "We fix it the only way we know how, together." The crew looks to her for direction, the uncertainty still lingering in the room. As the crew continues to work, the hours drag on. They're no closer to fixing the problem, but the determination in the air is palpable. Reynolds moves between the terminals, checking readouts and issuing commands, trying to keep the team focused. Yet, in the back of his mind, the questions persist. What happened to the rest of the crew? Why was their transmission cut off? The cold emptiness of space seems to mock him. Alex looks up from his terminal, catching Reynolds' eye. "Do you think we're alone out here?" he asks, his voice tinged with fear. Reynolds pauses, his gaze lingering on the empty expanse outside the window. "I don't know," he admits. "But I do know that we're the last ones left, and we can't let that stop us from finishing the mission." The crew nods, a shared sense of purpose growing as they return to their work. The silence of space feels suffocating, but they continue, driven by the need to survive. The crew has been working tirelessly, but the sense of exhaustion is beginning to take its toll. Dr. Clark breaks the silence, her voice cutting through the tension. "We can't keep going like this," she says, her words soft but firm. "We need a plan." Reynolds looks at her, his face weary. "We don't have time for plans, we need action." But even as he says it, doubt flickers in his eyes. Alex, sensing the tension, steps forward. "We can do this. We just have to believe we can. The crew looks at each other, unsure of whether they're comforting themselves or trying to convince one another. In the midst of their growing doubt, Clark's voice breaks through again, this time with more authority. The first thing we need to do is trust each other. Only then can we save this mission. The crew falls silent, the weight of her words settling in. They may be on their own, but they still have each other. The tension in the control room reaches a boiling point. Captain Reynolds, 37, stands before the crew, frustration boiling over. "We're running out of time," he says, his voice tight with urgency. "If we don't get the comms online within the next hour, it's over. The mission, everything, we're lost." The weight of his words hangs in the air, suffocating everyone. Alex, 29, his face pale and drawn, looks at Reynolds, anxiety clear in his eyes. "What are we supposed to do?" "Everything is failing. The systems are beyond repair," he says, his voice shaky. The captain's gaze hardens. "You find a way, we're not giving up." Dr. Amelia Clark, 42, watches the exchange with a quiet intensity. Her arms are crossed, but her mind is elsewhere, lost in calculations. "The systems may be failing, but there are still options," she adds, her voice calm but firm. She steps forward, her eyes locking onto Reynolds. "We can do this. We just need to act quickly." Her words hang in the air, and for a brief moment, the crew finds new resolve. But as the silence drags on, the uncertainty returns. Can they really make it in time? As the crew begins to work in a frantic frenzy, time feels like it's slipping through their fingers. Alex hunches over his terminal, typing furiously, while Dr. Clark examines the failing systems with calculated precision. The room is filled with the sound of clicking keys, the low hum of machinery, and the ever-present beeping of the emergency systems. "I can't do this," Alex mutters, frustration seeping into his voice. None of this is working. He slams his fist against the console, his temper getting the best of him. Dr. Clark turns toward him, her expression calm but unyielding. "You don't have the luxury of giving up," she says, her tone sharp, almost cutting. "Keep going. We're not done yet." Reynolds, who has been silently watching from the doorway, steps forward. "We don't have time to argue," he says, his voice quiet but forceful. "Just fix it, all of you." There's a long pause before the crew resumes their work, the pressure mounting with every passing second. The silence is deafening, broken only by the frantic sounds of the crew working against the clock. The air in the control room grows heavier, thick with the weight of failure and uncertainty. As the systems continue to flicker and fail, Dr. Clark's patience wears thin. "We can't keep relying on broken systems," she says, her voice low but firm. "We need a new plan." Captain Reynolds, 37, remains silent, his jaw clenched as he stares at the malfunctioning screens. "We're out of options," he mutters, his voice barely above a whisper. Alex, 29, looks up from his terminal, eyes wide with panic. "What do you mean?" "There has to be a way," he exclaims, his voice cracking with fear. "There's always a way," Reynolds replies, his voice full of quiet resolve. "But we need to think outside the box. We've been too focused on trying to fix the impossible." Dr. Clark steps forward, her eyes flashing with a sudden idea. "I think I might have a solution," she says. "It's risky, but it's our only shot." The crew looks at her, unsure but desperate for any kind of solution. "What do we need to do?" Reynolds asks, his tone urging her to explain. Dr. Clark's plan is a long shot, but it's all they have. The crew listens intently as she explains her idea, a solution that involves bypassing several critical systems and rerouting power to emergency channels. "It's going to be a tight squeeze," she warns, her voice steady but laced with tension. "But if we can make it work, we can get the comms back online and restore communication with Earth." Captain Reynolds, 37, looks at her with a mixture of skepticism and hope. "You're sure this will work?" he asks. Dr. Clark nods, but the uncertainty in her eyes betrays her calm exterior. "It's the only way forward," she says. Alex, 29, stands from his terminal, his face set in determination. Then let's do it, he says. The crew begins to prepare, but as they move into action, a new wave of doubt creeps in. Can they really pull this off? Will the power hold? The clock is ticking, and the uncertainty of the void outside feels more suffocating than ever. But as the crew begins to execute Clark's plan, the intensity in the room skyrockets. Every action feels critical, every second slipping away. We're almost there, Alex says, his voice strained as he works to reroute the power. The hum of the machinery grows louder, the tension almost unbearable. Dr. Clark stands over his shoulder, offering quiet instructions, her calm demeanor a stark contrast to the chaos around her. Reynolds, 37, watches from across the room, his eyes flicking between the systems and the crew. Keep going, Alex. We don't have much time, he says, his voice sharp with urgency. Sweat beads on his forehead as he watches the clock tick down. The room is alive with the sound of frantic work, the beeping of monitors, and the tense silence between commands. Can they pull it off? The question hangs in the air, unanswered, as they push forward with everything they have. The mission had taken a turn that none of the crew members could have anticipated. As the comms systems flicker back on, an unexpected message from Earth comes through, but it's not from the agency. It's from someone else. The voice on the other end of the transmission is distorted, but the message is clear. The mission was never what you thought it was. You're not just explorers, you're test subjects. The words hit like a hammer. Captain Reynolds, 37, freezes, his mind racing. What does that mean? He mutters, barely audible. Alex, 29, stares at the screen in disbelief. This has to be a mistake, he says, his voice trembling. But the transmission continues, its cold, mechanical tone sending chills down their spines. The agency is conducting experiments on your team. Your lives are expendable. The crew exchanges uneasy glances, a creeping sense of betrayal taking root. We need to get to the bottom of this, Reynolds says finally, his voice low and resolute. He turns to Dr. Clark, who stands motionless, her face betraying nothing. What do we do now? He asks. Dr. Clark, 42, steps forward, her eyes cold and calculating. We follow the mission, and we find out who's been lying to us. The crew is shaken, but there's no time to process the implications of the message. This changes everything, Alex mutters under his breath, his fingers hovering over the control panel. Dr. Clark looks over at him, her face unreadable. We need to act now, she says, her voice steady, before they can stop us. Reynolds, 37, steps toward the communication panel, his mind racing. If the agency's been lying to us, then we don't know who we can trust. We need to find out who sent that transmission and what they really want. His voice is cold with resolve, but doubt flickers in his eyes. We've been expendable to them from the start, Clark says, her voice low but cutting. We've been nothing but pawns in their game. There's a long pause as the reality of her words sinks in. The silence is deafening as the crew digests the revelation. We have to go off the grid, Reynolds finally says, his voice firm. We take control of this mission from here on out. But even as he says it, the creeping fear of the unknown begins to settle in. How far can they go without risking everything? The crew begins to discuss their options, the weight of the situation sinking in with every word. We need to know more, Reynolds insists. If we're going to take control, we have to understand what's really going on. Dr. Clark steps forward, her expression cold and calculating. The agency has been manipulating us from the start, she says flatly. I suspected as much, but this is confirmation. Her eyes flicker with something darker, a hint of rage that she keeps tightly controlled. They've known about this for months, and we've been kept in the dark. Alex, 29, is pacing now, his frustration boiling over. Why us? He asks, his voice desperate for an answer. Why didn't they tell us what we were really doing? Because we were expendable, Clark answers without hesitation. They never planned for us to succeed. They wanted results at any cost. The realization hits them all at once. They've been pawns in a much larger game. We need to find out what the agency really wants and who else is involved, Reynolds says, his voice low but firm. This isn't just about survival anymore. It's about exposing the truth. As the crew processes the information, the atmosphere becomes increasingly charged. We need to start digging deeper, Reynolds says, his voice firm and steady. No more playing by their rules. We're going rogue. His eyes lock with each member of the crew as he speaks. From here on out, it's about survival and getting the truth out. Dr. Clark, 42, nods solemnly. We'll need to override the agency's systems if we're going to gain access to anything useful. Alex, 29, is visibly shaken, but there's a spark of determination in his eyes now. I'll help. I don't care what it takes, he says, his voice unwavering. We're not just going to let them get away with this. Captain Reynolds looks at his team, his heart heavy with the knowledge that they're heading into uncharted territory. We'll need to move quickly, he warns. The agency will be looking for any excuse to shut us down. We have to be prepared for whatever comes next. With that, the crew begins to make their preparations. Their mission has changed. What started as an exploration has now turned into a fight for survival and truth. Crew begins their mission to uncover the truth, but there's no turning back. As they bypass systems and dig into the agency's files, they uncover disturbing information. This isn't just a test, Reynolds says quietly as he scans the files. They've been manipulating our every move. He turns to the crew, his face grim. There's something else going on here. This mission wasn't just about exploring the unknown. It's about something much darker. Dr. Clark, 42, is staring at her own screen, her face pale. We've been part of an experiment, she whispers. A large-scale experiment. They wanted to see how we'd react to the unknown, to isolation. Alex, 29, is shaking his head in disbelief. This is insane. We've been pawns the entire time, and now we're the only ones who can stop it, Reynolds says, his voice resolute. The crew shares a long, silent look. What started as a routine mission has become a battle for their lives and for the truth. Let's finish this, Reynolds says. And with that they move forward, determined to expose the agency's dark secrets. The crew's tension reaches its peak as the decision is made. They must act now. The entire mission hinges on this moment. Captain Reynolds, 37, stands before the control panel, his eyes flicking over the readouts with grim determination. We have one shot at this, he says, his voice firm. If we don't succeed in overriding their systems, we're done. There's no going back. The weight of his words hangs heavy in the air, and for a moment, the crew is silent, their anxiety palpable. Alex, 29, shifts uncomfortably at his terminal. We'll make it work, he says, though the uncertainty in his voice betrays his doubt. Dr. Clark, 42, steps forward, her face stern and resolute. We don't have the luxury of doubt anymore. We do this, or we die. She looks directly at Reynolds, her gaze unflinching. What's the plan? The captain exhales slowly, meeting her gaze. We disable the agency's lockdown protocols and reroute all available power to the communication system. It's the only way to send the signal out before they stop us. The crew exchanges a quick glance before moving into action. Time is running out, and every second could be their last. The crew works in synchrony, but the pressure is mounting with every passing second. Alex, 29, is frantically typing, his hands moving at lightning speed over the console. Come on, he mutters under his breath, sweat beading on his forehead. It's not responding. The urgency in his voice fills the room, but there's no time to waste. Dr. Clark, 42, stands next to him, offering quiet instructions, her calm demeanor the only thing holding the chaos at bay. You're almost there, she says, her voice steady. Focus. You need to break through the firewall. Captain Reynolds, 37, paces back and forth, watching the data streams on the monitor, waiting for a sign that they've made progress. Hurry, Alex, he urges. We don't have much time. As Alex types furiously, the tension builds, the clock ticking down to their final moments. Just a little longer, he mutters, his voice shaky. Every key press feels like a life or death decision. The seconds stretch on endlessly as the crew holds their breath. The room falls into complete silence, save for the clicking of keys and the steady hum of the malfunctioning equipment. "It's done," Alex finally says, his voice barely audible. But before anyone can react, the warning lights flash red across the room. A new message appears on the main screen, a countdown, rapidly ticking down. "What the hell?" Reynolds breathes, his heart pounding. They've initiated a failsafe. The room is plunged into chaos as the countdown continues. "We need to stop it now," Reynolds shouts. "If that reaches 0, it's over." Alex scrambles to reroute the signal, his hands shaking as he types faster than ever. "I'm trying," he yells, his voice frantic. Dr. Clark steps forward, her expression unwavering despite the growing panic. "We don't have much time. We need to shut down their system entirely before it's too late." The crew is moving at full speed, every action crucial to their survival. But as the countdown continues, it becomes clear that they may not make it in time. The pressure in the room is unbearable. The countdown continues to tick away, its unrelenting rhythm beating in the crew's ears. "It's over," Alex says, his voice filled with dread. "I can't stop it. We're too late." The room falls silent for a moment, the weight of the situation sinking in. But then, unexpectedly, Dr. Clark steps forward, her eyes glinting with resolve. "We still have one chance," she says, her voice low but forceful. "There's one more system we can access. A backup relay." Captain Reynolds, 37, looks at her, disbelief flashing across his face. "We didn't know about this," he says, his voice edged with panic. "Why didn't you say anything?" Dr. Clark's eyes narrow, and she meets his gaze without flinching. "I wasn't sure if it would work, but now, it's our only option." Reynolds nods, his face hardening with determination. "Then let's do it. Now." The crew moves into action again, pushing the limits of their endurance. Every second is precious. They can't afford to fail. The stakes have never been higher. The crew works furiously, pushing every system to its limits. Alex, 29, is typing faster than ever, his hands moving with renewed urgency. "I'm in," he exclaims. "We've got a direct link to the relay. It's working." Captain Reynolds, 37, looks over his shoulder, his face tense but hopeful. "Do it, now," he orders. The room is alive with energy as Alex reroutes the signal, and Dr. Clark monitors the systems. "It's not enough," Clark mutters, scanning the data, "but it's our only shot." The countdown on the main screen continues to flash ominously, but the crew pushes forward, driven by the need to succeed. "Come on," Alex breathes, his eyes fixed on the screen. The pressure in the room is palpable, each second feeling like an eternity. With a final desperate effort, the systems align. The signal is sent out. The countdown stops. The crew exhales collectively, their bodies slumping in exhaustion, their faces drained but relieved. They've done it, for now. The crew stands silently, staring at the damaged control systems. The mission has been saved, but it feels hollow. "We did it, but at what cost?" Captain Reynolds, 37, says quietly, the weight of his words hanging in the air. The others remain silent. The mission is over, but will never be the same. The hum of the spacecraft systems fills the room, but it feels distant, as though it belongs to another world. The isolation of space presses in on them, more palpable than ever before. Alex, 29, glances at Dr. Clark,